taken the time to watch our introduction video that explains what this series of webinars entails. But as a reminder, we're going to be creating an environment of recovery and discovery through community and collaboration. Before I introduce today's animated keynote speaker, I'd like to hand over to Lucy Crowther, who's the Director of BRC Learning, to say a few words. Lucy, over to you.
Thank you, Sam. So, as Sam said, I'm the very new Director of BRC Learning. I'm still in my first week. I'm having an amazing induction, but I can't take any credit for the amazing work that the team have done on this series of webinars. The BRC Learning are really proud to present this important collaborative discussion. In the absence of our amazing residential programs this year, we're delighted to be a part of this discussion with you. This first stage of our learning offer for this year, so there will be more news on what we are going to produce this year. As ever, despite challenging circumstances, we remain focused on developing your talent and supporting our members and beyond into the retail sector. So thank you for the introduction, Sam, and welcome to everybody on the call. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucy. So today we're going to be looking at the impact of COVID-19 on our lives. And so highlights of what we will be sharing today, we'll be looking at your emotional well-being and personal performance in these challenging times. We're going to be developing an understanding of how we're going to build coping strategies to navigate positively through these challenges. And then we're going to spend time looking at our own personal leadership style and the skills that we're going to need as leaders to start moving forward. In a moment, I'm going to hand over to Evelina. She's a leadership trainer, consultant and coach, and she specialises in neuroscience. She believes that the future success of organisations can only be sustained by enabling individuals to take ownership of their own personal and professional development. Evelina is going to talk to you for around 20 minutes. And then you're going to have some time to break out into smaller groups to discuss what she shared and your thoughts on that topic. For those of you that like taking notes, and I'm one of them, you'll be pleased to know that Evelina very generously has put together a PDF that summarises what she's going to share today so that you can pay full attention to her as she speaks. Thank you, Evelina. It's over to you.
Thank you, Sam. It's a pleasure to be here and welcome everyone. So what a strange and interesting times that we are having right now, right? And it's pleasure to be part of this journey and sharing that with you. And as much as it's challenging and difficult, it could be so much worse. I would like you to imagine for a moment that one morning you wake up and you suddenly find yourself in a foreign country. You don't speak the language. You don't have any work permits, residency documents. You don't have any family with you. You don't have money with you. What would you do then? How would you feel then? How differently would you act, react, and behave in that kind of situation? Well, this is exactly where I was back in 2004 when I came to London for the first time. And of course, as much this was a challenge for me, I've decided that I'm going to make something out of this challenge. I'm going to create something new. And there were these crazy years that followed where I was sleeping 4 hours a night and went on to have several jobs and build career and have a family, study at university. And Lithuania is one of those countries that has very high suicide rates. And I guess to soothe my guilt for leaving my country and leaving my family behind, I have decided to volunteer for this charity called Matri that works with suicidal people. When I ended up being there surrounded with those vulnerable people, it really hit me that there is a huge difference in how people respond to exactly the same scenario and exactly the same circumstances. So in front of me, there are people who you look at them and you think, well, this guy has it all. And yet there he is right in front of me in a respite for suicidal, not wanting to live. And there I was in a foreign country without speaking the language, trying to build my life from scratch and never felt this way. So what makes a difference? And I know all of you will also know some people who are like this at both extremes, at extreme ends of the spectrum, right? Some people just grow and thrive and learn from challenges and just become stronger and better. And then some other people really struggling to cope with very small changes, struggling to cope with anything that is happening around in their environment, and anything can tip them off the balance. So again, what's the difference? I felt like I had something that these vulnerable people really needed, but I didn't know what is it that I needed to give. So I went on this mission, I guess, that's still lasting 15 years on, to research what is the difference, what makes that, that critical difference in how we react to what happens to us, and how exactly we can build our individual resilience in line with that. I've studied neuroscience, interpersonal neurobiology, anything I could get my hands on that explains that difference, how our brain is shaped by those experiences and resilience, and went on then to help people to build stress resilience and run stress resilience workshop, help organizations to set up their own talent and well-being strategies, as well as one-to-one coaching. And my goal really for my company and what I do today is to bridge the gap between those two extremes, between that high performance and individual well-being. And hopefully with a bit of my support, we can help, we can do that on organizational level and individual level. So as you can imagine, all of this research of why people respond so differently in a crisis, in a situation that is so unpredictable, is so relevant today, right? And I'm being privileged to be here today and to be sharing some of this with you. Of course, I cannot pack all of my over a decade of research in next 15 minutes, but hopefully we can gain a little bit more clarity and sense of direction, and just a little bit more understanding about what really makes us human, and what is it that we can do to respond to the situation better and create better environments in our businesses to support our people. So what makes that difference? What is that difference between that failure and success? Well, it all really boils down to three simple things. So first is our self-regulation. So how good are we at regulating our stress responses, our emotions, our impulses, anxieties? How good are we at regulating some of those natural intuitive body responses? The second thing is, how good are we in interacting with our social environment? So building those relationships, building those networks, responding in a right way to all of these organizational politics around us. And that social connection, those social relationships and behaviors are really crucial in shaping our success. And the final thing is the way we implement our goals, visions, and strategies in action. There's a lot of people who dream for all of their lives, but they never really implement anything. There are people who attend all of the learning seminars and all self-development courses they could ever attend, but their life doesn't change for better. So the final thing is really knowing how to put everything that you learn in practice and achieve those goals in a way that doesn't sacrifice your personal health and your physical and mental well-being. Well, how do we do that? Well, here we have a problem, because in a modern world that we live today, we think of ourselves as we are these rational, intelligent human beings. But in reality, most of the time, we are driven by all of these subconscious impulses, habits, routines, emotions, and all of that subconscious baggage that happens beyond the boundaries of our logical, rational, conscious mind that we are so much identifying ourselves with. If you think about it, first reptiles have evolved more than 300 million years ago, and we still have exactly the same neural circuits in our brain that govern exactly the same behaviors. And those reptilian evolutions shape our instinct for survival, while then followed by mammalian evolution that shapes all of our social interactions, all of that emotional intelligence and the way we are interact with others. And only then we have this neocortex, this rational, logical part of our brain. Now, 95% of all of our brain activity is beyond your subconscious level. So it's only 5% that really governs that ration and logic and reason, which of course explains why you set your goals and New Year's resolutions, and you will end up back to your old habits and routines a few months or even weeks later, and why it's so much easier to enjoy a slice of cake instead of quinoa and kale salad, and why it's so easy to lay in the front of TV with a glass of wine instead of going for a run. We are wired for safety, survival, belonging. And this situation that we are in, this unique situation that we are in, really highlights what does it mean to be human. And I think it's really good time to look at some of those subconscious drives that govern us every day. So I have created this model that I call the C of human needs. So S is for safety. So in relation to that reptilian brain, our primary need is really survival, safety and survival. E is for evolution. So that is our growth, learning, exploration, and novelty. And A is for affiliation. That's for social belonging and being part of the group. So to explain a little bit more details about that. Now, safety. How does that manifest in our today's modern environment? Everything that is familiar, everything that is known to us will be interpreted by our brain as safe. Therefore, this need manifests in our need to have familiarity, to have order and routine, to have clear expectations and boundaries, to know what is it just about to happen and feel like we have a level of control over that, over events. So that gives us that level of safety. So on one hand, we want this routine, we want this safety, we want this familiarity, we want things to be the same to a certain level. On the other hand, in complete contrast, there is that evolutionary push for us to grow. So to get out of the safety of your own boundaries, go out and explore and see, well, what if there is something new, and new discoveries, new explorations beyond those boundaries of safety. So there is that push to challenge ourselves, to go out of that safety and comfort zone, explore, learn new things, and see how we can grow and develop so we can feel like we are improving, we're becoming better. There is that evolutionary push from that point of view. So again, how it manifests in our everyday and working environment is again that excitement for wanting some novelty, wanting some challenge, pushing for your next promotion, wanting to learn some new skills, wanting to be surprised and having something new. There is that novelty and excitement. And then we have that third need, which is affiliation. So when you think of this, for many millions of years, we would have not been able to survive on our own. We could have only survived as part of the group. Therefore, our brains are wired to belong, to be part of the group. and this, even a lot of our fears and a lot of our anxieties, such as public speaking, for example, are rooted in some of this fear of exclusion from the group. Because what happens when you are standing on a stage? You're not part of the group, you are excluded. So any judgment from others, any critique, we have this very strong inner mental chit-chat at the back of our brains that tells us to go back to safety, to please others, to belong, to be the same, to not stand out from the group. So any exclusion from the group is, our brain interprets that as a threat to your survival. Therefore, a lot of our behaviors are wired to be the same rather to be different and to stand out. So where are we? So we have our 3 human needs, but what happens to them when we find ourselves in a situation filled with, in a world filled with COVID-19, a situation that we have today? So the first thing is that our brain goes back to that basic survival mode, looking for safety and survival. Now, when it goes back to some of these primal modes, your body is looking to save energy as much as possible. And some of our rational, logical parts of our brains are the most energy consuming. Therefore, the energy is being limited to those neural circuits, which then explains why our behavior becomes so irrational and sometimes not reasonable, and we do something and then we look back at it and don't understand why have we responded in that specific way. Our dependency on others also increases, and therefore we are prepared to go at lengths to be there for others, to help and support. And at the same time, we are needing that support from others. And if we don't have that connection, if we don't have that sense of belonging to the world and connection, that can really affect our mental well-being and our ability to regulate our stress responses. Now, as we have evolved through these millions of years, we have also evolved this amazing ability that no any other animal has to switch on our stress response or anxiety by a thought process alone. So your mind doesn't know what is real and what is imagined, which means that just by thinking about what if and worst case scenarios, our body is switching on all of that stress responses as if we are in real danger. Now, for as long as we are in that stress danger mode, we will not be able to think creatively, to learn new things, to come up with new solutions, to deal with imminent challenges that are there. And we are becoming these animals really just surviving and depending on others for that. So our success in our current situation and what we can create out of this, what we have, really depends on our ability to regulate those primal instincts, to show our body that we can demonstrate those basic needs of connection, safety, and only then we can evolve and grow and learn, create new things and innovate and come up with innovative solutions to whatever problems we are facing right now. And what are the ways of doing that? So really, there are 3 ways that we can apply from neuroscience point of view to calm down some of our reptilian brain and to come back to that safety. So one approach is so-called top-down approach, which means really calming down from your top neurocortex of top parts of your rational logical part of brain, calming down those lower parts of impulsive brain. Now, how do we do that? So that is really through thinking, through positive thinking, through logic, through reason, through visualizations and imagining good scenarios, positive self-talk, and also by having right facts and right information. Because if we know what is about to happen, if we have real facts, that helps us to prevent our brain from creating all of these worst case scenarios that would happen when we don't have those facts. Now, the other approach is the opposite, and that is bottom-up approach. And this means that calming down our brain through our body. Now, as much as I've mentioned that we can switch on our stress response and we can switch on our anxiety just by thought process alone, every emotion and every emotional state has a specific recipe of neurochemicals and physical posture. When you think about it, you don't have to ask a person whether they are happy or they are sad, whether they are excited or they are depressed. You can see that. You can see in their facial expression, you can see in their body language. So as much as each emotion and thought reflects on our body, process works the other way around. So this is what this approach is all about, calming down those neural circuits by adapting better postures, by having right exercise, by having right diet, having right amount of sleep. So by balancing out some of those automatic biological processes in our body, we can also calm down our brain and come back to that safety. And then final thing is from outside in, and that is calming down our mind and body through environment that we are in. So that involves our surroundings, that involves having objects around us that we associate with happiness and calm, maybe being in nature, listening to specific music. So I hope that this gives you a bit of a flavor about what is it that really drives us beyond those subconscious, beyond that conscious, rational, logical level. And those three ways to approach it gives you some ideas about how best to deal with that, to calm that down. So together we can come up with new creative solutions. And once we are back to that place of safety, connection, and belonging, we can then create all of these new solutions for whatever challenges that we are facing today. So as Rob mentioned already, next we will be going into groups and discuss and have some exercises to follow up on our learnings. So Rob, back to you.
So what we'd like to do is invite you to, on the chat, send your responses, your thoughts about what you've heard in that last discussion to Evelina, and she will probably take about 10 minutes just to do some responses to those questions or thoughts that you have. So if you can start posting, that would be great, to Evelina, as you did before. That would be amazing.
Great. So thank you, Rob. And I can already see some comments coming in, and people are reflecting on learning how to listen, exercising and staying healthy. No more excuse of not having time. Learning that I'm more resilient than I thought. I can adapt. Taking more time to reflect and being more present in the moment. And really appreciating life outside of work. And that is really precious. Exercise, back to basics. Less obsessive, getting things done. Appreciating time out. Learning to adapt behaviors. Again, there's a lot of about adaptability and letting go, learning to accept time in a moment, appreciating connections, being able to give and volunteer and help others. It's inspiring to hear from others on what people are focusing and what's important to them. Putting myself first, establishing new boundaries. Accessing and exercising positive actions and emotions is brilliant. Gratitude to myself. Trust in others. Comfort with imperfection is beautiful. I think we live in that world filled with so many pressures and expectations. And it's brilliant to know that now it's a time when we can really let go and be present to ourselves and to others. A lot of comments that have been coming out of your chat and reflections is a lot to do with uncertainty. So maybe I could end up that closing by how can we reduce some of that uncertainty, and how can we bring more of that clarity and sense of direction and purpose to our very chaotic and disorganized environment right now. So really, it is not what happens to us that shapes our success, our well-being, and how we are feeling, but the way we respond to it. And the way we respond to it really depends on the learnings that we take out of those experiences. And it's very important that this activity, like here today, and what guys are doing here, is providing you all with that space to reflect, to connect, to share your feelings, to share your emotions. And just simply by being open, by being honest, by sharing how you feel, by sharing some of our common struggles, we realize that the world is not as scary as we think, that we are all in exactly the same boat. And it's very, very important to remain open and to maintain those channels of communication. So there are really 3 things that we would need to do to improve our leadership to ourselves first, self-leadership, and then to others. So first is communication, second is communication, and third is communication. So what exactly we need to be communicating? So first is what? So what is it exactly that we need to be doing? And hopefully some of these chats and conversations will give us more of that clarity on what is it exactly that we need to be doing. So what I need to be doing as a person, but also when you're communicating to your teams as a leader, what exactly we need to be doing. The second thing is why. So why are we doing it? And having that bigger sense of purpose and direction. Where are we going? What is it exactly that we are trying to create? What is the result that we are trying to achieve? So it gives us that shared sense of purpose and belonging that we really need right now, and that trust in that shared common goal. And then the final thing, so how exactly we're going to do that. So you're communicating your what, your why, and your how. Now, in a lot of businesses now, we cannot do what we used to do before. And it's very important that here our how needs to change. And it's very important that we communicate to others those 3 things. So what is it exactly that we need to be doing, why we are doing it, and how specifically. So not in a big and vague picture, but in a very, very specifics. So people know exactly what's expected of them. What is it that they need to do, when, and how. Now, to reduce that uncertainty, to bring more of that clarity, if we question when the world turns upside down, as it is now, and we start doubting ourselves, we start questioning ourselves, can I do this or can I not? There is a lot of our habits, behaviors, things that we used to be doing simply is not feasible anymore. So it is only natural to doubt ourselves and say, can I do this? Can I not? But when we think about the way our brain operates, as soon as we ask ourselves, can I do this or can I not? Our brain will talk us out of doing everything that is a little bit different, challenging, dangerous, and will bring us back to safety. And therefore we'll come up with all sorts of excuses why we cannot do things that we would like and that we should. So what can we do instead is, instead of asking, can I do this or can I not, just asking how. How can I do this? So what exactly we want to achieve, what is it exactly we want to create, and asking how can I do this? So this gives more positive, more meaningful sense of direction and that clarity, and opens that space for that creative thinking, for that brainstorming, when we are reflecting on what is possible for us to do now. So how exactly we can still ensure our own well-being? How can we achieve our targets and our goals? How exactly we can look after business side of things? How can we still deliver results differently and come up with the new solutions? There is one example of adaptation that I really, really like, is a farm that was a charity that was only dependent on visitors who would be visiting the farm. And now in this situation, it's simply not possible for people to visit that. Therefore, they've launched completely new side of the business where they are offering people to invite the goat or llama to their Zoom meetings. So this is example of that creativity that people can come up with when we ask ourselves that question, how can we do that differently? And allow that creative part of us to guide us, rather than acting from our fear and from all of these survival mechanisms that are guiding us subconsciously. So don't ask yourself, can I do it or not? Ask ourselves how, and let's find our way to come up with creative solutions, and let's communicate that clearly to ourselves and to others. Thank you. So there we are, and Sam, I think it's over to you.
It is. Well, first of all, Evelina, I just want to say a huge thank you for today. It's been really thought-provoking. And another big thank you I want to put out there is to the participants and for everybody that's joined today and has been so honest and open about how they're feeling right now and what they're experiencing. I know from our team that some have sent some really lovely messages through this afternoon. So I just want to say a huge thank you for that. So as a reminder, Evelina has kindly put together a PDF of what she shared today, and we will be sending that to you over the next few days with a feedback survey. And your feedback is really important to us because, as we've said, this is the first of 5 webinars, and we'd really like to hear your experiences of today. So with no further ado, I just want to say we look forward to seeing you on the 27th of May for the Our Business webinar. And thank you and take care.